Sandra, welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that great big subscribe button right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I go. Give this video a thumbs up if you find the content useful, helpful, insightful in any way, shape or form, or just want to give this channel some love. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Well, today we are on day 21 of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, which is celebrating our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. If you're in the UK, it's just gone midnight, so you could say we're going into the 22nd day. I'm still on day 21. I'm usually working by USA time at the moment. So today's episode is all about, do asexuals want kids? And if so, how do they conceive these if they don't like sex? Okay, so it's a very interesting title because obviously asexuals are vast. Every asexual is different, and some asexuals are not sex repulsed. So just because there's sex repulsed asexual doesn't mean to say there aren't some asexuals that would participate in sex. But let's see what asexuals really think about having kids and conceiving it, because it's no good just saying my opinion. It's better to hear from the asexual perspectives in this book. So let's get on with the show. So Robin's story. Robin's story is on page 44 of the printed copy of this book. And so yes, would you like kids, and if so, how many? And how do you hope to conceive these? If you already have kids, did you know before you had them that you're asexual, and how did that impact your life? So Robin said, I think I would be most comfortable having kids by adoption or scientific methods. And I think that's quite common for a lot of asexuals, that if they do want to have kids, they'd rather do it by something like adoption or scientific methods. So obviously, you know, they might have it done in a test tube or something like that. Because, you know, some asexuals, they really are sex repulsed and they don't want sex. So they wouldn't be comfortable in conceiving kids that way. And this is Kenneth Williams' story. Does Kenneth want kids, and if so, how would they conceive them? Currently, I view myself as too young and not financially fit to have a child. And I'm not sure if I do. I go back and forth on the issue, but overall, I think I would like a single child. It would have to be adopted or come into my life in a similar way, as I will never want to actually have a child. So Kenneth does not want to have sex in order to get a child. They'd want to conceive it in some other way. And, you know, and it's very interesting they want a single child. I'm an only child, and I have to say it can be very difficult being an only child, right? There's pros and cons to it. I mean, the pros are that, you know, you end up being very, very super strong. You end up being very resilient in life, very robust, because there's only you to look after yourself and you to take care of. You've got no brothers or sisters to like pin the blame on if something happens. And your parents are like, who did that? Right. And so, you know, you're very much like you kind of like, I think you grow up quite quickly because you take responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your own stuff. You have to be self-reliant to a lot of extent. You have to spend time by yourself, no matter whether you like it or not. And, you know, you become a lot more stronger and robust in that way, because you kind of have to make decisions for yourself and stuff like that. However, there's a downside, and that is, you know, like it can be very lonely, because if you've got no friends and you're not used to relating to someone else in your own home, like another kid, it can be very difficult when you go to school to be able to relate to other children. It can be like really difficult. It can be difficult doing that socially as well, and socializing with other kids, because you're the only one and you're used to being on your own. And then when you get put in school with a bunch of kids, you're like, how do I react to them? How do I interact with them? How do I go along about my daily life with them? Especially if you haven't got any friends outside of the school. So I think, you know, like it can be quite lonely. It can be quite upsetting sometimes if you are upset about something. You can't go to anyone. There's no one else to go to, right? I mean, you can go to your parents, but obviously they are a different generation that's not necessarily going to understand you. So, you know, it's difficult. There is difficulties. It can be lonely, and it can be like no one really is on your wavelength and understands you, and it can be like you're all alone, right? But then, you know, because you're on your own, you do become a stronger person because of it. So I always, you know, like think about if you want one or two and how that's going to impact, or more, and how that's going to impact the kids itself, you know, or their self if you're having more than one, themselves. Right. Would you like to have children, Victoria? And if so, how would they conceive them? I don't want to have children. If I ever do change my mind, unlikely I will adopt. So again, this person wants to adopt. Now, I do want to say something that I personally never ever want children in my life. I've known that since I'm 15 years old. The doctor's like, oh, you'll change on that. And I've never changed my mind. I can still physically have kids. I can still get pregnant, but I don't want children. I look forward to the day where I can never get pregnant ever again, because I'm not interested in getting pregnant. I'm just like repulsed by that. I'm pregnancy repulsed. And yeah, so the whole thing just, you know, so I knew at 15 years old, if I had have wanted children, I would have adopted. And the reason for this is because I think there's loads of kids out there in the world that maybe come from a broken home, or their parents have died, or something happened to their parents, or the parents can't look after them for some reason, and they feel neglected and abandoned, you know. And if you can give love to someone who's already in this world, who really needs that love and that care and that attention, then go for it, because it's better to give something to someone that's already in existence, there's a need already there, than to have something where you don't know what the outcome's going to be, if you know what I mean. I think it's better to choose your kid. And I'm not into babies, even though I get on well with babies, as in they can hold my fingers and stuff because they can trust me. But and I get on with kids as well, even though I don't want them. But you know, for me, you know, if I had an adopted kid, I would have made sure, you know, I give it lots of love, care, and attention. But I think if you have kids, you have to become a different person. I couldn't be the person I am now if I wanted children. I'd have to be a completely different person, completely different to how I am now. And I like the way I am. I mean, I think I need to improve myself, develop and grow myself into a better version of me. But I like the lifestyle I have, you know. I don't want to be having children. I don't want that lifestyle. But there is a lot of point in having adoption, because it's very important to choose a child that already needs it. If I'm not into babies, then, you know, I knew I would have gone for a child who was about 4 or 5 years old, who'd already started school, really, so that, you know, I had some time on my own. I wasn't with the kid all the time. But having said that, you know, some kids, they get bullied at school, right? So just because you get a kid that you might decide if you want to adopt, you get a kid like 4 or 5 years of age, doesn't mean to say that they're not going to have, you know, like problems and issues going on at school if you do that. And it might be a lot to bond with the child later in life. It might be very difficult compared to if you did have them as a child, as a baby growing up, you know. So you to bond with the child later in life, it might be very difficult compared to if you did have them as a child, as a baby growing up, you know. So you've got to understand and weigh up the pros and cons. But I think there's loads of kids out there that need a good home. You know, if you can give love to someone in need, I think it's a beautiful thing. So, as long as you do it for the right reasons, not because you just want a trophy kid, but because you genuinely want to change that kid's life for the better forever, right? Which is why we should be having kids if we're going to have kids. To spend time with them, to love them, to give to them, to help them in their life, right? So, Sappho's story, page 145 of this book. Would you like kids, and if so, how many, and how would you conceive these? Again, this is a weird one for me because I can't imagine myself having kids, but I also want to lead quite a conventional life, which would probably involve me having them at some point. If I were to have children, biologically, I would probably conceive by sex. So there are some asexuals that want to still have kids by natural means. They want to still have sexual intercourse in order to have the kid. That to them is natural, and that's what they mean. So just because someone's asexual doesn't mean to say they won't have sex, and it doesn't mean to say they won't have it for kids. This is Anon's story, and this is on page 245 of the printed version. Right, so would you like kids, and if so, how many? How would you conceive these, Anon? I do not currently have kids. I'm not sure if I want any. If I marry my boyfriend, then yes, I'm considering strongly eventually conceiving them naturally. If this were the case, I wouldn't want more than 2. However, if he and I split off the romance, I would not want any kids in the future. If the future holds me having any, then I would be open to them being of other orientations and straight, and I'd let them show their pride in that. So I think that's really nice, you know. Anon's already thinking that if they do have children, that they would encourage them to be different if they had different sexuality to the traditional heteronormative heterosexual. You know, and I think that's very, very important. You know, it's important that all of us should be like that. You know, like if you're gonna have kids, you should be like, people should be free to be who they are to be. Just because you're born into a sexuality doesn't mean to say you are that sexuality, you know. And it's very important that you learn to grow into yourself. You learn to find out who you are, discover who you are, and develop and grow into that person. And if you're a different person to the sexuality you were given at birth, then that's okay, right? That's okay. I thought I was heterosexual for years of my life. I didn't realize I was asexual in 2014. But, you know, I was just led to believe I was heterosexual like everyone else is, but I was mistaken. And so I'm glad that I found out I was asexual, and it's such a relief because I truly know who I am in that way, truly at one with my soul now in that way, and it's a beautiful thing. So yes, if you do have kids, please do encourage them to be themselves, encourage them to be whatever gender or sexual identity that they want to be or know that they are, right? It's very, very important. Obviously with gender identities, it's like, you know, what they want to be, what they know they actually are. And then with a sexuality, you know, again, it's like, you know, we're not told at birth that there's, or growing up, usually there's lots of different sexualities. Having said that, I was very fortunate in that fact I lived near a gay guy couple for years of my life. Growing up, after I was 6, me and my parents moved to this farmhouse, and there was a couple of guys that lived together with a dog, and I knew them as a gay couple. So I was always knew that there was more to life than the heteronormative heterosexual couples. So I'm very thankful for that experience. And my parents were fine about that, you know. So I got to know about that from an early age. Right, David's story. Would you like kids, and if so, how would you conceive? I wouldn't like kids. Whether that's a fortunate coincidence as an asexual or a result of being one, I don't know. And that is the thing, you know. If you're asexual, especially if you're not into sex, into having sex, then it's kind of like it would be natural for you not to want children. Although evidently from some people in this book, then some people who are asexual still want kids. So that doesn't kind of compute. But I do think that there's a proportion of asexuals that are really not interested in sex, and that might be a lot of to do with why they don't want kids. Maybe they just don't feel that way, you know. So Callie's story, page 277. Would you like kids, and if so, how many, and how would you conceive these? I don't want kids, and I never have. I'm not opposed to considering adoption if I end up in a relationship with someone who kids are very important to, but it's not something I have any particular desire for. See, with me personally, because I know I never want kids in my life, and I've known that since I'm 15 years old, I would have to find a partner that equally didn't want children. Now, the difficulty for me is I like younger foreign guys, right? So I'd have to find an asexual younger foreign guy who didn't want children also. And in a lot of cultures, foreign cultures, they're expected to get married, have sex, and have kids. So that does make it more complicated. So I need to find a guy who's kind of westernized, who's not traditionally his culture, where it's expected to have marriage, expected to have sex, and expected to have kids, because I'm very much the opposite of that. You know, I don't want children. I've known since I was 15, I definitely don't want kids. So if I come across a guy and he's umming and ahhing and not sure whether he wants children or not, he's not going to be the right guy for me. And because I like guys in their early to mid-20s, obviously some of those guys still haven't decided whether they want children or not. But, you know, as I need to be with an asexual guy, really, not a sexual guy, that obviously means that there's less people that would be interested in that with. But I remember there was a guy who came to one of my asexual meetups in my city in the UK. And he was 20 at the time, actually. But he said age didn't matter to him, and he just liked blonde hair. My hair is actually blonde, but it looks a bit brown tonight. But it's like dark blonde. and it's very hot in the UK, you can see, very hot. And so anyway, yes, he came to one of my meetups, and I think that must have been what he was interested in, like possibly me, because he traveled like 12 hours on a bus to come to the meetup. And when we were talking on our own, he asked me if I wanted children, and I said no. And they asked me, would I adopt to have them? I said no, I just wouldn't. I don't want kids. And I didn't see him again after that. But, you know, you don't really go around asking someone if they're seriously interested in kids unless you're attracted to them and thinking about a relationship with them, to be quite honest with you. Do you know what I mean? You just, you know, why would you even ask that? So he spent like 12 hours on a coach coming to my meetup and 12 hours back. There wasn't just me at the meetup. There was other people. But when he was talking about kids with me, he was talking about having, you know, he was talking about that when me and him were on our own. We were at the bus station, I think, waiting for him to go home. I think it was something like that. And, or was it when he just arrived? No, I think it was when he was going, before he went home. I think it was. But anyway, you know, he asked me, and it was nice he asked me outright, but he was on the grey end of the asexual spectrum. And he was like grey sexual / demisexual. He'd been sexually attracted to one woman before. But yeah, so that was kind of weird and strange experience. It was nice. I thought that I had, you know, he was coloured guy, so I think coloured skin's really beautiful. So that was really nice. He wasn't Indian though. I like Indian guys the most. So, but it was a really nice experience. Like I got in spiritually with him. Like there was a spiritual connection with me and him. But you know, and I liked his look aesthetically. But you know, I was thinking it's nice that he was interested in me, because clearly he was, even though he didn't say it. But you know, it didn't go anywhere, and I just really can't have kids. I just really don't want that lifestyle, because like I said earlier in this video, you know, if you're gonna have kids, it's a completely different lifestyle. I wouldn't be the person I am today. You know, I like the lifestyle where I can be up till the early hours of the morning, till 4 a.m. if I want to. I can do my YouTube channel whenever I want. I can like be listening to music, watching movies. I'm listening to music like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. To me, I'm like a kid myself, you know, on purpose. Like I live like a teenager. You can see my bedroom. It's just like, you know, I'm sure a 12-year-old would even like my bedroom, you know. I'm sure kids would love it. But, you know, I am like the kid on purpose. Like, you know what I mean? It's all like, this is my Disney throw, and these are my cuddly toys, and these are my, you know, my unicorn slippers. And, you know, I just like being like a crazy girl. Oh, thank you, Liam. My hair's a bit wet tonight because it's sweating in here. Hi, Sandra, you're stunning. I definitely like you. I don't ever want kids. He probably a crush on you. You're a very attractive woman. Oh, thank you, Liam. Lots of love. It's nice to see you. Oh, I think that's really sweet. You sound stunning. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. It's really weird because one of the guys I used to like years ago was Jason Donovan. I don't know if you remember Jason Donovan. Thanks for the thumbs up. They were Neighbours years ago. And your surname's Donovan. Oh, Donovan, isn't it? I just thought of that. I'm going off in a tangent. But yeah, I don't want kids either, Liam. I've never wanted kids since I'm 15. I feel like I'm in a sauna tonight. It's so hot in the UK. And I've got my night shirt on. You know, so I'm a bit, you know, but I have to put some bottoms on really. So pajama bottoms, but it's roasting in here. So Ari's story on page 289. Would you like kids? And if so, how many? And how would you conceive these? I don't have kids and don't want them. I think you should really, really want kids to have them because of how much of your life will need to centre around them for the next 18 years at least. If I ever change my mind about wanting them, hopefully I'd have a girlfriend who'd wanted to give birth to them with a sperm donor, because I still wouldn't want to be pregnant, or adoption, but I hear that's prohibitively difficult and expensive. So yes, I totally agree with this person, with Ari's view. You know, you shouldn't have kids unless you really, really want them, you know, because kids can tell if they're not wanted. Kids can tell if their parents don't want to pay them attention, would rather watch TV than be with them, would rather do other things than play with them. You know, it's kind of like if you're not really into having kids, if you're not into the kids' lifestyle, then I just think don't have them, because I think, you know, it's just a shame else, you know. Like, I don't want children, right? I really don't. I've made that decision when I was 15 years old because I don't want that lifestyle. But if I was to be in that lifestyle, you know, I would be a completely different person. I would be going out with the kids. I would be playing with them, going to the cinema with them. I'd be talking to them about all different like kids stuff. I'd probably get on, well, I do get on really well with kids because I do love kids stuff. Like, I probably wouldn't want them to grow up, because I'm like, can you not grow up, please? Because I like the kids stage, like, permanently. Because I'm like, so yeah, but I'm not the motherly type, Don't get me wrong, I do care about people, and if someone's hurt, I'd be there for them, Like when I'm in my asexual meetups, it's kind of like I'm looking after the people, I try not to think about it too much like a mother would do. But one time on one of my asexual meetups, one of the people who was at my meetups, they caught themselves, I can't remember, I think it was their finger or something they caught, and it had a bit of blood around the finger or something. It was in a retail store that they did it on, and I was like, oh, quick, like, let's get a manager, let's get some ice, let's get a plaster, let's make sure you're all right. And I'm always kind of like that person that does that. So I guess I'm kind of a caretaker. I don't want to say motherly figure in that way, because I don't think of myself in that way, but I guess I'm a kind of a caretaker, and I do care about people, and I do want to make sure they're okay and not hurt. And I'm very like, oh, like, make sure it's all right. And even when I had a younger girl as a friend, then I always used to, like, if she was cut or anything and hurt herself, I used to be like, oh, let's put some cream on it. I used to put some cream on it for her and look after her like that. So I have got the instinct in me to look after someone, but I'd rather, like, be the young person in an actual romantic relationship and look after my guy in an emotional needs way. But in fact, like, I go to kids club though sometimes. I go to kids club to watch movies myself, and I'm laughing more than the kids do. I'm like sat there laughing out loud, and I'm thinking, this is a kids movie, and most of the kids are serious, and I'm the one laughing. Yes, and I'm laughing like the loudest of all of the people in there as well. So that is kind of really, really crazy. But yeah, I think you shouldn't have kids unless you really, really want them, because I think it's a huge commitment, and unless you're prepared to commit your life to it and life to that person for at least, like they say, 18 years. But it shouldn't just be 18 years. Like, some people, they need to go back home and live these days, like, there's a lot in the UK, there's a lot of poverty at the moment, there's a lot of people that are homeless, there's a lot of people struggling to get work, lots of people being made redundant, so some people need to go back and live with their parents because they've got nowhere else to go to. And so I've lived on my own for years, but it isn't easy living on your own. It's very hard in quite a lot of ways. It's nice to have your independence though. I love being able to do what I want when I want, total freedom like that. But it's also difficult, to financially make sure you're okay all the time, especially as I have disabilities, so that makes it harder. But still, I still love being on my own. I still love being single, actually. Right, Thomas's story, page 323 of Asexual Perspectives book. Would you like kids, and if so, how many, and how would you conceive these? At one time, I believed I wanted kids. After a failed attempt, I had learned of my asexuality and had given up the ghost on the whole thing. So yes, this is basically Thomas's story. They decided that, they thought they wanted kids, but they tried to do it. I presume that means have sex. And then they learned about asexuality, and they thought, well, what's the point now? And they gave up on the whole thing. So I think, if you find out you're asexual, it is really a journey of discovery of your life. Now I know I'm asexual, I'm actually very sex repulsed. But in the past, I did have sex with heterosexual guys I was in relationships with in the past, But it's like, as soon as it was actually my last heterosexual long-term relationship was 2011 when that ended, and then I didn't date anyone for almost a year after that, and then from 2012 I had some dates, and then it was 2013 when I realized that I couldn't ever have sex again. I was dating a Bangladesh guy. I mentioned this on my channel the other day, and and I just couldn't bring myself to have sex. I was trying to force myself to do other sexual stuff to please him, because I just couldn't. My mind just would not let me have sex. No matter how much I was attracted to him aesthetically, no matter how much I really liked his look and really kind of like wanted to please him, it was kind of like, I just can't do that. I just really can't do that. And so, that led me to thinking that there's something very different about me, and that, and I just can't bring myself to have sex anymore with any guy ever again. And so, yeah, and then in 2014, I found out I was asexual. I'm asexual, And so that is a journey to discovery. And I think when you find out you're asexual, I think your life starts falling more into place and you can make more informed choices and decisions about what you do and don't do, especially with your body. And so from this person's point of view, Thomas, when they said, they did believe they wanted kids, then they tried it once, it didn't work, and now they realise they're asexual, they've given up the ghost. In other words, they've given up on it. Sometimes when you find out you're asexual, you realise who you truly are, and that you don't need to abide by society's expectations and rules, and that sometimes if you thought your life would be a certain way, but really that's not the life for you, and you were made for something different. So if you are struggling with your asexuality, please know that asexuality is not something to be scared of. It's something to treat as an adventure, to treat as a journey of discovery of who you really are, both internally, and that will portray outside externally then. But please note, you don't have to have all the answers at once. I mean, like I said, I knew I didn't want kids at 15, and I was adamant about that, and I have never changed my mind on that. Never. Right? So, I don't want that lifestyle. If I get into a relationship, I just want it me and the guy. That's it. Because I am the kid and I love being the kid. So there we go. There's no room for more. Right. Page 377. So, would you like kids? And if so, how many? To Eddie. I'm really not sure if I want kids. If I did, I would only have one. I'm not too excited about the conception process. I hear it involves some strange thing called sex. So in other words, Eddie, if he was going to have kids, would be thinking to have sex to get them. But that's probably why he's not really sure if he wants it. Or maybe it's just like not at a stage in his life, where he knows it. So like I said, I like younger foreign guys particularly. And a lot of them still haven't made their mind up about whether they want kids or they don't want kids. Whereas for me, when I was 15, I knew I didn't want kids. So for a guy who's like 21 who doesn't know what he wants, to me that seems quite weird, because I was like 15 when I knew I didn't want kids. So it's kind of like, but like I said, you don't have to have everything planned out. You don't have to have all the answers. Some people, they do change their mind about things later on. They do decide that that what they thought they wanted years ago wasn't really what they want. Some people think they want something, then they get the opportunity to have it, and it wasn't what they actually wanted. Or it didn't turn out like they thought they wanted. So, just remember, you don't have to have all the answers now, but it's good and important for you to think about these things. If you are looking to get into a relationship, before you even pursue a relationship, you should be seriously asking yourself, do you want kids? That should be a major deal breaker question that you ask other people and you ask yourself, right? Because that is a really major big deal. Right, and you need compatibility for that. So if you are an asexual looking to get in a relationship, please think about that, And if you're looking to get into a long distance relationship, also think about that. Because if you want kids and the person's not going to be there for 3 years and you want kids like next year, then you know what I mean? It's not going to work out, is it? You have to, before you get into a relationship, before you actually move towards that, you need to decide what the heck you want. Like, what type of person do you want? What type of job should they have? What type of look really do you want them to have? Where should they live? How should they be in terms of like mannerisms and hobbies and interests? But all the deal breakers, do you want marriage? Do you want sex? Do you want kids? Like, would you live together? Would you live separately? Would you live distance apart? Would you not? Do you want to go traveling for a year together? Do you not? Right, where are you going to live together? Are you not going to live together, like I said, And if you do live together, are you going to have separate bedrooms? Or are you going to be in the same bedroom? Or are you going to live in 2 separate flats and a house? How's all this going to work, So kids should always be a thing that you factor in to deciding what type of relationship you want. Like some people, like I don't want kids. Like I said, I can still physically have kids. But some people who are older girls, they want kids because their like biological clock, as it's called, is running out. So if they like a younger guy, they would need a younger guy who wanted kids as well. I knew he definitely wanted kids, so they could get on with that, right? I'm not interested in that. So from my point of view, I'm the opposite. I need a guy who knows for categorically that he doesn't want kids like in 5, 10, 20, 50 years or all his life. And that's quite a big ask of some younger guys, Some younger guys, they haven't thought that far ahead. But I don't need a guy like that. I need a really mature younger guy who's very, very strong. It's no good with me being with someone who's not strong. I need to find a strong guy. There aren't many that I've come across that are young, foreign, Indian, and strong. You know, a lot of them are like too worried about what people think, too worried about like, oh, you know, stuff that really doesn't matter. And you know, like, and they're too scared, and it's like, I don't need someone like that. I need a really strong young guy who knows what he wants, probably business orientated, very growth mindset, and just like, yeah, this is what I want. And I need a guy who knows what he wants in terms of sex, marriage, or kids, because I don't want any of them. I especially do not want children. Not want children. That would be the worst out of all three of those things. Like, I am not going to have children. I'm not interested. I sometimes ask myself, so what if a guy came along and he already had kids, but I just couldn't do it because I don't want to be a mother. I like it just being me and the guy, not me, the guy, and a kid involved, because I don't want that lifestyle. If I did, I would, like I said, I would be a completely different person, but I've made a conscious choice. I don't want to become that type of person. It's not the lifestyle I want to lead. And so you have to understand, if you're having kids, there is a lifestyle involved in that. You know, it involves usually you spending time with the child, you going on day trips with the child, you taking the child to do certain activities, you're playing with the child, you're interacting with it, you're giving it love, care, attention, you're tending to its emotional needs, you're tending to its physical needs. It's very demanding, right? You know, and you have to learn to understand that kid on their level. You have to learn to intuitively know what they need. I mean, like I said, I am actually very good with kids. I actually, when I was 15, although I didn't want kids, I decided that maybe I did want to work with children because I actually got on so well with them. I used to have kids coming up to me. Like there was Carnival, for example, in the UK once. Carnival's like a parade. In case you didn't know, they have things called floats. So they have like displays that move on wheels on the cars and stuff. And yeah, so there was this girl once, and she just came up to me and started holding my hand. And I didn't even know where the parents were or anything. It's just like it's like I was part of her family or something. It's very strange. But I've had kids like in supermarkets that got lost, and they'll navigate towards me because I'll look after them. I would never harm a child. I would always look after it, right? So I know I'm very protective in that way, and I know I'm very caring. And children naturally trust me. Because they know that I'm pure heart and I'm purely honest and I'm trustworthy. And I'm glad that they know that. They can see my full essence and being like that. I'm one of the very safe people in this world. I know that, right? And even when I was in my old job, there was a couple and their son came and started holding my hand. And they were shocked because this was in a furniture company. And they were like, what's going on? And he just came up to me and started like holding my hand from what I remember and talking to me and stuff. I think it was holding my hand. Obviously, you've got to be very careful but he came up to me and started doing that. I think he was holding my hand, but he was definitely talking to me. And, you know, and we have a major conversation. And his parents were like shocked. But I do get kids that, you know, come and hold my hand and stuff because they know they're safe with me. I would protect them. Even though I don't want them, I would never see kids getting harmed because I don't believe in that. I think it's wrong. You know, I think children lack a lot of love, care, and attention. I think, you know, like, it's not good. If you ever hear parents saying, oh, shut up, you know, when a child's upset, that's the worst thing you can say to a child when they're upset. This is why there's a lot of problems with kids these days, because they're told to be seen and not heard, to shut up, to bury their emotions, to don't cry, don't be so mardy, don't be this, that, and the other. And that's the wrong thing to teach your kids. You should be asking your kids, you know, like, why, what's upset you? You know, tell me about it. Express your feelings, express your emotions, because this is why, as adults, there's a lot of people with mental health difficulties and problems and issues, because they're having to repress their emotions as a child, because they're always taught, oh, no, don't cry, stop crying, like it's wrong. That's repressing and suppressing their emotions. And therefore, thank you for the thumbs up. Lots of love to you. And therefore, when they're going throughout their adult life, they then have problems. They can't emotionally express themselves correctly. That they're too scared to cry because of what a society teaches them. So you bottle all these emotions up, and it ends up in things like anxiety, depression, trauma. And this is what actually happens. And a lot of this stems from childhood. It stems from parents not being emotionally aware of the child, not being able to emotionally connect to the child. Neglecting the child. It might not be physical neglect, it might be emotional neglect, which is what a lot of people don't talk about. People think neglect is just like, oh, They don't give them food, they don't clothe them, they don't do anything with them, they just leave them. And it's not just about the physical aspect, it's about the emotional aspect. Parents should learn to be understanding of their child, should listen to their child, should treat the child as an adult. Thank you for the thumbs up. Should be asking them as young adults, even when they're like 6 years old, what do you want for your life? What do you want for your food today? What do you want for your life? How are you feeling? Talk to me. Like when I talk to kids that are like 6 years old or something, I'm talking on their level. I'm asking them, what movies have you seen lately? What did you like about that movie? What felt good about it? This type of thing, and if they've got like doing some drawing or something, I'll say, oh, hi, what are you drawing? Like, tell me about that drawing. Do you enjoy it? And like, if they're a princess, I'm like, tell me how it is to be a princess. Tell me, so you need to explore their imagination with them. You need to help them foster positive emotions, foster their creativity, encourage them to be themselves, encourage their imagination, encourage them to feel safe in being who they are. Because, otherwise that leads to if you don't, it leads to a lot of self-doubt when they're older, a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear, a lot of lack of confidence. And this is taken all the way through teenage years, all the way into adulthood. And this is why a lot of adults have problems, because of their childhood, because it wasn't sorted out. Their emotional needs a lot of the time weren't attended to. People are told to, they basically dull down their emotions. Don't start crying. How many times have you heard parents in the street going, stop crying, stop it? That is not what you should be doing. They should be saying, what's the matter? Come on, give me a hug. Let's make it better. Let's feel like, you can talk to me. What's the problem? Tell me what the problem is. Let's have a hug. Let's have lots of love. You're all right to feel that way. Let's, help you to feel better and stuff like that. And, caringness and kindness, so otherwise a kid starts feeling like they're rejected or neglected or abandoned. And they need to know that their emotions are cared for. They need to know that it's okay to express who they are, because if they don't express who they are as children, when they become adults, they're learned to repress their emotions. So in a healthy relationship, you'll be able to communicate your feelings backwards and forwards. You'll be able to communicate your emotions. Like, I'm feeling really sad now. I'm feeling angry now. I'm feeling anxious now. And you'll be able to express yourself in that relationship. But if as a child you're taught to not express your emotions, not express how you're feeling, but in actual fact you're shouted at, then when you're later in life in a relationship, you're going to not express yourself. You're going to be fearful of what that other person says, what that person thinks, what other person does. And this, in turn, is going to make you very cautious of saying stuff. And a lot of the time, you're not going to say stuff. And then you're going to bury these current emotions. You're going to be like, maybe you'll start resenting the other person, or maybe the other person won't be matching your needs. But you're so used to, as a kid, being basically your needs not being matched and being told to shut up and stop crying because it's a bad thing, that when you come to have these relationships later on in years and years time, a lot of the time you can end up being in an unhealthy relationship because you can't fully express who you are, and especially if the other person's been repressed and suppressed. And this actually drives people apart. This stops effective communication because people don't learn the communication skills they need to be effective in the first place. So please, if you're a parent listening to this now, I'm not a parent. I don't make out I have all the answers, right? I'm not a parent, but I do know a lot of stuff that I've learned in my self-development journey. I know stuff about myself. I have my own issues from past when I was a kid. And I don't want that for the generations to come. I think it's important for parents to understand that they play a role in their child's future when they leave home, and that how they shape their minds when they're kids is going to be directly reflected into what type of adult they are and how the relationships of the future is going to be. If you want your kid to have not an abusive relationship, not a non-healthy relationship, if you want them to have a healthy relationship, you need to be able to allow them to express themselves, to feel comfortable, confident, and cared for when they express themselves, and that it's healthy to do so. You should be not telling them to shut up when they cry, but that it's okay to express those emotions. It's okay to feel pain, not to bury those emotions down, because when they do that, Years later in adulthood, it will just come out as like an explosion of, might come out as an explosion of violence for some people, or other people might just come out with an explosion of negative emotions, and people don't even know what they're coming from. They're like, what's all these negative emotions? Maybe their life's getting bad, but all of a sudden, all these triggers start happening, and they're from their childhood. I came across one of my friends online yesterday, and they'd written a post. They've at the moment, they're all across the media, big time, big time across all multiple publications. And they were having like a trigger from their childhood. They're like, I've got all this success. It's what I've always ever wanted. And something's trying to drag me back to the past now. But a lot of the time it's unhealed wounds from childhood that does that. And, unhealed traumas from the past. And so we must remember that the generations that grown up, we need to teach them love, caringness, kindness, and compassion, so that they grow up to become healthy adults. It's very important. Right. So, 5 marked to N, page 409. So, do you want kids? And if so, how many and how would you conceive them? So, 5 marked to N says, not really. Having children of my own isn't something I really want to do at all, really. So, yeah, this person's not keen on having kids. Just they don't want them at all, like I don't, right? So, Darcy's story, this is on page 439 of the book. So would you like kids, Darcy? And if so, how many? How would you conceive of them? So I have never really been one to see children in my future. My partner has kids. So in a way, I now have kids. But I never had to think about conception for them. I have thought about artificial conception for another couple to adopt a child as a sort of donor. But other than that, I have never really thought about it. So yeah, some people do want like a surrogate, and this is quite common in same gender or same sex couples, because if they can't conceive a child themselves, they get like a surrogate to do it for them. So they'll like pay someone usually to actually give birth to the child, and then the gay couple bring that child up together. Some people actually want the original parent to be part of that or not. Some asexuals, they just want to actually be a parent to someone who's already got a kid. They want to like what they call co-parent. So there's, if you know David J, who's the founder of asexuality.org, there is quite a major publicity about him and the fact there's a couple he's like in a parental relationship with, so he helps to bring up their child with them. And so they're kind of like in a family of 3 with the kids, so a family of 4. So because he always wanted to be a co-parent. So some asexuals, they do actually want to do that. They don't want kids themselves. I don't even know if they all want relationships, but they definitely want to be a parent. So that's one way of doing it. Be a co-parent, so be a parent to someone else's kid. Or you could obviously just get into a relationship with someone who's already got kids, so you don't have to conceive them. That is another way of doing it. So we're going to end this with Juanita on page 467. Do you want kids? And if so, how many? How would you conceive them? I would have children, and I have thought about this before. This concept in certain religions is that sex is only a function for procreation. I think the concept was born of an asexual person because I completely dig that idea. Do it to get the kids and then leave me alone. Now, I knew a guy, an asexual guy who subscribed to my YouTube. I think he might be subscribed to his channel, but he subscribed to my newsletter, Asexualise newsletter, and he told me that we was married to an asexual partner, and literally they just had sex to have kids. That was it. And after that, they've never had sex again. So that was all it was to get kids, and they don't want it. So some asexuals that are like that, they will just literally have the sex to have the kids. Once they've got the kids, that's it. They don't need the sex. They don't want it. They don't have to have it. And yeah, so anyway, I hope you found this video useful, helpful, insightful. If you have anyway, if you've found you've got some value from it, please give it a thumbs up. It is Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, which is celebrating our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. And I was reading from an Asexual Perspectives book. If you want to get a copy of that, it's on Amazon, Waterstones, or Barnes and Noble. Until next time, embrace your quality and each other's inner ace. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that great big bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live line out or post a new video. I want to send you lots of love and tell you you are beautiful. Never forget it. Take care, lots of love, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Bye.